We have with us Lori Turnbull, political analyst. Hi, Lori. Great to see you.
Hey, great to see you too.
After almost 20 years, Canada is reviving the role of Canada's Arctic ambassador. The question is, why now, Lori, when this government has even less than a year to see things through?
Right. Interesting you put it that way. They've got less than a year to see things through. We assume that, right? Because at this point they're looking at election in probably October if we end up sticking to the schedule, but maybe even before that. And so indeed, they are putting this forward. They're putting forward a kind of revived Arctic strategy at this point, which is a continuation of the previous one that was put forward, I think, 2018, 2019. And so this is a critical time for sure. And I think, fair play. The minister is saying, look, there's a lot going on. This perhaps, previously, perhaps not smartly, we have taken for granted that this is not a hotly contested area, but now it is. And so now we can see, because of climate change, because of the relationship between Russia and China, that Canada can no longer take for granted that this is a stable part of the world for us, and that we need to ramp up our presence there, whether it's through consular activities or, appointing an ambassador or different things, but essentially putting forward, we are here, we are mindful of this, we are mindful of what might be coming forward in terms of the need for increased efforts at this point and in this region.
Okay, let me put a big if here. Now, can the plans for having new consulates in Greenland and Alaska change if there is a change in government? And what would that really mean for this new Arctic policy?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think you can point to a number of different policies and a number of different strategies that this government has embarked on as a way of kind of trying to put things in motion to sort of lock things in place, right? And so almost trying to kind of draw attention away from the fact that there could be a change in government. When we hear these kinds of announcements, and frankly, this announcement doesn't have a whole lot of detail in it, but we can hear this strategy that would be multi-year. And the government is speaking as though it's going to continue for a long time into the future. But, and it would potentially have to in order for the strategy to go through. But of course, this doesn't bind a future government, not at all. If there's a next government, of course, and there will be, at some point, like the government will decide then what is it going to do? How will it define its own Arctic strategy? And if it ends up that the Trudeau government is going to pass the torch at some point in the next year, well, then, presumably a Poilievre government would make its own decisions about how to navigate the space.
Let me ask you about the larger picture here, because this policy, as we know, commits almost $35 million, most of which we understand at the moment is dedicated to the ambassador and the consulates that we were discussing. But how do you see this initiative working in Canada's favor internationally with allies as well as adversaries?
Right. I mean, I think what the government is trying to do without saying China a whole bunch of times is acknowledge the fact that there is something going on right now where even though China is not physically present there, they are in the sense that they have got this relationship with Russia, and Russia is dependent on China in many ways. And now we can see that this is a way for China to be present here. And I think for that reason, the federal government feels like they need to be responsive. They need to be sorting this out. And so they need to articulate a strategy that again, like, because China is like, our government will see this as not a friendly presence in this space necessarily. They're going to try to figure out how to work with allies in order to manage the increasing presence of China in this space. Now, at the same time, I think our government wants to have this included as part of what we are going to put towards our defense spending. And so in terms of working with our NATO partners, there's lots of mention of the United States as our partner. And so sending the signal to them that we are focused on our defense spending, that we are increasing our presence in the Arctic, that's a conversation that's going to continue to happen with them as a way of saying, here's an increased investment from Canada in terms of defense.
Lori Turnbull, political analyst, always a pleasure. Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Akshay. Take care.